Hello, I am Dr. Donita L. Payton, and my purpose is to educate, encourage, and enlighten. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop by my channel today. I am so grateful that you are here. So today, we are going to talk about 5 ways to overcome frustration. Do I have your attention? Are you in a place where you are dealing with a frustrating situation right now? Or perhaps a frustrating person right now? Or perhaps a frustrating thing right now? Now, if you've seen any of my videos, you know how I talk about feelings. Feelings are valid. They absolutely are. I'm not discounting them. But feelings can and will lie to you. Feelings can and will betray you. So I generally talk about being in a state of frustration versus I'm feeling frustrated. So it may seem like semantics, but it is a very important distinction. Do you remember being in school when your teacher talked about person, place, or thing? And it helped you to identify what a noun was? Okay, so we're going to use that today. Is it a situation you're in? Is it a place that you're in, either physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Is it a person who is causing the emotion of, the feelings of, the state of you being frustrated? It's key. If you don't know the source of frustration, how can you deal with it? You'll just spend your day spinning your wheels, saying, I feel frustrated, I'm having headaches, and your stomach in nervous knots, and maybe you're sweating and you're a bit on the side of tiffy with people because you are just dealing with these emotions, but you're not yet sure the source of those emotions. And I would ask, are you the source of your own frustration? Don't exclude self. Make sure you put that into consideration. Is it someone else, or is it something that you need to deal with within yourself, something internal that perhaps you've not acknowledged, or you need to define, or you need to identify? Remember, the one thing that you can control is your reaction to other people, your reaction to your situation, your reaction to that thing that has you in this state of frustration. You can react with rage or, flying off the handle and feeling out of control and being out of control. Or you can, after identifying that situation, say, okay, these are the things that I can deal with, and this is what I can do in this situation. I may need to seek some outside help for that. If it's a person like your spouse or your boss, where it may not be easy to just, discount and get away from, or if it's a situation like your job or something in your neighborhood that, again, is more difficult to get away from, you still get to control how you react to that person, place, thing, even yourself. Our emotions can run the gamut, but if we allow our emotions to control us, then you will continue to be in that state of frustration. So identify the source and then identify what you can control, remembering that you cannot control anyone else. And in many instances, we can't even control our situation or those things around us, but we can control how we react to those circumstances, situations, those people, and even our own lovely selves. Now, this one is more on the humorous side, but it's very important and it is key. I remember being in a restaurant and the menu had 10 pages and they had 40 choices for hamburgers and 40 choices for chicken. Now, that's a lot. And think about it like this. If you go into a situation like that, you're already hungry, you're tired, you're already at a restaurant because you didn't feel like cooking or something like that, and then you're presented with a menu that has that many choices. Could you imagine that you might be in a state of frustration? Possibly. You may take it out on the poor waiter or the waitress or your dinner partner if you're not there alone, and you could just be overwhelmed. Think about this too. So if you've not seen my video on 5 humorous things we tell ourselves during the quarantine, please take a look at that because I talk about this in that video. I'm a person who really likes clothes. I admit it. I like clothes. But during this time of staying at home, I've realized that I can actually get by with just 3 outfits on rotation, not including Sundays and not including my favorite pajamas. And since I did have so many clothes, I remember, and tell me if this has been you in the comment section, standing at one of my closets and thinking, I don't have a thing to wear. And then knowing that I needed to repent because I just told a lie. But it wasn't that I didn't have anything to wear. I was inundated. I was given so many choices that it almost felt like I couldn't make a choice because I had so many choices. Does that make sense? Have you been there? Are you there now? So limit your choices to limit your level of frustration. And it may not be food, and it may not be clothes. It may be the number of opportunities that you spend with someone, a gruff neighbor, or a difficult family member, or your boss, or your spouse, or any number of things, that situation that you find yourself in. It may be that you need to limit your exposure to, your participation in, your visitation to certain places. I know you need a moment to let that one sink in, but you knew it was coming. Make a decision and then stick with it. If you're already in a state of being frustrated, this is not the time to also be all wishy-washy. You need to tighten up that spine, give yourself a good talking to, and say, I have to make a decision and I have to stick with it. This is not the time for procrastination. This is not the time to be indecisive. You need to make the decision and then stick with the decision. And what I mean by make the decision, let's say you already identified the source of the frustration. And so that may mean that you would limit your time in the presence of that person who is the source of your frustration, because you already determined that you know that you control how you react to that person, but you could also make the decision that perhaps we won't spend as much time together. Or if it's a coworker, perhaps we can bring in another team member so that we can sort of spread out the levels of frustration. Buddies always work. Or if it's a situation, can you limit your time in that situation? Can you deal with that situation earlier in the morning if you are a morning person, or later in the afternoon if you do better, after 1 or 2? Is it a thing? Is it something that you can eliminate from your life? So you decide that, okay, I need to let that go. It's not beneficial for me. It's not helping me. It's just still causing me to be in this state of frustration, and it's not worth it. So that's what you're going to do. Make a decision and stick with it. Now, I don't mean that you stay in your frustration, like you're angrily writing in your journal, I can't stand this person. I hope I never have to be in that situation. I hate that thing. Now, if you write that, that's okay, but you don't want to stay in that position. You want to, of course, be really open and honest with yourself in your journaling. You want to record how you were feeling. We can't get away from those feelings, can we? You want to record how you're dealing with that situation, the decisions that you've made around that situation, and then you want to write about them. And if you've seen any of my videos before, you know how big I am on journaling, because the mind will lie to you and it will remind you, you remember how frustrated you were when you were dealing with her? Do you remember how he made your head throb when you were dealing with him? Do you remember when you had to go visit that place and how you felt? And it will remind you of all the horrible things, and maybe not remind you of how great you dealt with that situation or how you made that decision and you stuck with it. So I definitely want you to journal through the frustration that you're feeling. I'll go through all of the steps that I've given you and note how you dealt with it and how were you feeling, and did you overcome it, or are you still going through it? This is not an exercise in saying that you have to be at the end before you can perform this step. This is more of an ongoing thing, especially if the level of frustration seems to be ramping up instead of going down. Or if you find yourself dealing with the same person, the same situation, the same thing, the same way. You definitely want to know, well, what was going on? How was I feeling? What did I do? What could I do differently? What should I do differently? Do I need to enlist some help? And so the purpose of this exercise is, once the frustration has passed, or again, if you're still in the frustration, you have proof that, okay, this is what was happening, and this is how I was feeling, or this is how I was thinking, or this is how I was speaking, and this was the outcome, or this is what I did. This is what that person did. You have basically a roadmap for what you did, what happened, and it's a real roadmap, not the one that's imagined in your mind that may be tailored to the situation and generally tailored to the negativity of it instead of what you were really successful in. And with your journal, you have it to go back to if you have to revisit that level of frustration or that situation. And you can say, oh, okay, this really worked for me. Oh, no, I shouldn't do that one because I wasn't so successful in that one. I'll try this time, because I can't guarantee that you after you perform these 5 steps that you won't ever be in a state of frustration. As long as we are living, we will have to deal with frustration. But you can be more successful. You can be more prepared in dealing with frustration once you follow these steps and make it part of your routine, part of your go-to for dealing with frustration. And I want you to also be reminded that even if you're in a situation that you can't change, please give yourself and that person, that situation, that thing, grace. Sometimes we are in difficult times, difficult places, having to deal with difficult people, and we can't get out of that situation, but we can always give ourselves grace. We can always ask for help. We can pray through it, write through it, remind ourselves that this won't last always. Grace is so important. It's so important that I talk about it a lot, because we do have to give ourselves grace when we're, feeling frustrated, dealing with frustration, feeling, just as if our emotions are all over, and if we're feeling as if we don't have control. And in the world that we're living in today, that's not an unusual feeling, but that doesn't mean that we have to stay in that place. By journaling, you will have a review, you will have a reminder, you will have proof that, hey, I survived and I can deal with this. I can get through this. So I hope that this video on 5 ways to overcome frustration has been beneficial to you. And if you implement these 5 steps, I hope that you are successful and that you get some relief from the pounding headaches and the nervous knots and the feeling of anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. Remember, show yourself some grace. Identify the source of the frustration. And then determine whether you can deal with it, whether you need to make some changes if you're able. And then you're going to identify how you can control what you react to. Those are the only things that we can control, are our reactions. We can't control how someone else acts or a situation that we may find ourselves in. We can only control how we react to that. So you want to identify what you can control. And then you want to limit the number of choices that you have. Again, if that means that you gather with a smaller group, you do more individual interactions, if it's in terms of people or groups or one person, or if it's a situation, is it a situation that you can eliminate, or a situation that you don't have to be in as often, or if it's a place, how many times do you have to go there? Can you limit your outings there? So always make sure that you limit your choices. I know that in our world we want everything to be limitless, but in some instances, limits are best. And then you want to make sure that you make a decision and stick with it. Don't be tossed and driven by how you're feeling. Make sure that you're making decisions based on what's presented before you, the evidence, and what it is that you can control, and of course the source of the frustration. And then number 5, you want to journal about it, because that's going to be your roadmap. That's going to be your reminder that, hey, I survived this. It was difficult, and this is what I did when I was confronted with that person or that situation or that place or that thing. It will give you the reminder that you can do it, that you did it before, or if you weren't as successful, that you now have an idea of what you need to do differently. I started off with grace, I'm going to end with grace. Make sure you give yourself some grace. Cut yourself some slack. You're doing a great job. So, thank you so much for taking the time to stop by my channel today. If you would like more information, please feel free to visit me at drdeclutter.com. That's DR, the letter D, the word clutter.com. It'll be in the description. Before you leave, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell at least 5 people you know about my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And if no one has told you today how awesome you are, I want you to know that you are absolutely, positively awesome. Take care. God bless. Bye.